Hey, everybody, how are you? So, who was the first baseman that defined first baseman for the Mets? Hey, Bayonet. William, thank you for the up. William is like the SNY reporter here. Polanco, Alvarez, Senga, and Lindor. Yeah, they all are coming along. Wagaman made it to the 40-man roster. I thought he'd be called up last week, if you remember. Kimbrel signed by the Rays. Peterson, no opener. They don't have an opener for tonight. They've used everyone. Young playing first base. Certainly, I think, an upgrade over Melendez. Soto DH. Melendez left field. That's because Soto is still probably under the weather. Benj in right field. Ewing in center field. And we are fucked. William, thank you for the updates. Who was the best first baseman in Mets history? Now, I'm not putting Piazza in there. I'm not putting Phillips, Todd Zeile. Hey, Mitch, I'm putting some first baseman that we consider first baseman. Now, everyone loves a good debate. I love it. And a baseball debate. Remember playing initial baseball on the bus if you were going to the game or in class if you weren't listening. And there are so many different players. I remember John Milner in the 70s when we were terrible. I remember Willie Montanez, probably one of the worst defensive first basemen next to Richie Hebner. In fact, Hebner took over for Montanez. Montanez played 78 for the Mets, and Hebner was signed, played in 79. Between both of them, horrendous defense, probably the worst in the National League for the Mets. But we look at all the first basemen. Dave Kingman, right? Kingman played from 75 to 83, back and forth with the Mets. Olerud. Yeah, so many. Edgardo Alfonso played a few games for the Mets. Rico Bronya had 2 good years with the Mets. Pete Alonso, which, from 19 to 25 was our first baseman. But we all look at Keith Hernandez. Why? First of all, he was the first captain in Met franchise history. And the way it's going now with Lindor and his politics, probably the last. He's not in Cooperstown. And I think that's a sore subject, more with Met fans than anyone else. Because if you were old enough to witness Keith Hernandez, how his trade impacted the 83 Mets, it legitimized the team that was on the rise with a great minor league system. He won his 7th of 11 Gold Gloves the following season. He had 311, 859 OPS, finished second in the National League MVP award voting when he won in 79 with Willie Stargell. He remained consistent for 3 more years. Injuries and his 30s took their toll. But Keith Hernandez was brilliant. He topped out, I think, at a 146 WRC plus, which is 46% better than the average player. It's graded at 100. Now, along the way, Keith Hernandez led the Mets to the 86 World Series. Captain. In fact, he shared the title for a year. Well, he actually had the title alone for a year. Then he shared it with Gary Carter. And because of his personality, his work on Seinfeld, his abrupt humor in the booth, which sometimes is a little off the edge and risque without him meaning it to be, he's become a media presence, a social media presence. And for the Mets, he's our guy. He's one of the most popular figures at Citi Field, one of the most beloved Mets in history that didn't come up as a Met. And they retired his number 17 in 2022. And for me, Keith, and we will vote, but Keith right now. Now, Keith is a New Yorker that wasn't born and raised. He was kind of naturalized. And he wrote that in his autobiography. He was first eligible for Cooperstown in '96. He only got 5% of the vote. Within 2 years, he more than doubled that support. And he was gaining some momentum, and then he dropped off the ballot in 2004. Now, he's been left off the contemporary baseball era ballot 3 times, and he's next eligible in 2029. Career 296 hitter, that would have been a 300 hitter if he would have retired a couple of years earlier or just really wasn't banged up. His best case is his defense. He had 162 homers, more than 1,000 ribeyes, as he calls them, RBI, in his parlance. But he looked at as probably the best first baseman of all time defensively. And he's rated the 8th best player at any position defensively. And he was inducted into the Mets Hall of Fame in '97. So very hard not to talk about Keith. Pete Alonso now set the Met all-time record for home runs in 25, past Darryl Strawberry, who was a beloved Met. And had he remained with the Mets long term, I'm sure he would have leapfrogged Hernandez as the greatest first baseman in Mets history. If he hits 500, you got to call him the best, even if he makes 20 hours a year. But as things happened, he left still trailing Hernandez on the all-time WAR list. Keith Hernandez leads, and he won the ring. Alonso didn't. So right there, that's something that you have to look at. He was also the captain. Now, he set the Met single-season home run record in 2019, and then the career mark in 2025. He finished with the Mets 264 homers. Throughout his time in Flushing, he's been beloved, although he has a very different personality. Their playing styles are much different. Hernandez was an elite defensive player, contact hitter. Alonso more an all or nothing player. Questionable defense, but they left their prints on first base in Met history, certainly. Ed Kranepool, the most games in Met history, 1,800 plus. For 2 decades. Steady Eddie. He wasn't an original Met. He was called up in '62 at age 17 and then spent 17. Incredible. He made the National League All-Star game in '65, assisted in the 1969 championship run, and helped them get to the World Series in '73. He was never a star on any of those teams. Wasn't really an all-star. He was steady. He hit over 300 twice. He eclipsed 15 homers just once, but he's the longest tenured Met to this day. And it won't be broken anytime soon. The active team leader, Michael Conforto, had appeared in 578 games. Now, Kranepool made an impact when they needed him most, in the 1969 World Series when he homered. And 69 Mets, that team is remembered all over the place. So Kranepool's remembered all over the place. A native New Yorker. They used to scream, "They still love you." The good thing about playing in New York was the Mets have tradition. They have 2 World Series titles. And you would think with that team from '83 on, they should have had more. I believe they should have had at least one more. But then again, you could look that they were lucky to win in '86. If the Cardinals weren't all that good, we would have. We lost Eddie Kranepool in 2024. And he'll be remembered as Steady Eddie. John Olerud played from '97 to '99 with the Mets. Highest qualified batting average and on-base percentage in Met history. 315 and 425. Pound for pound, he was one of the most effective Met first basemen. His '98 season, he topped the Mets all-time first baseman in WAR, 7.6. In '99, 5.6, ranked 3rd. He was here briefly, or he would have ranked probably number 2 down the line. He came to the Mets after the '96 season in a trade for pitcher Rob Person. He played 3 full years in Flushing before leaving for free agency to go close to home in Seattle. He had a WAR of 17.3 in 3 years, uh, more than any Met not named Hernandez at first base. His career stats compare favorably to Keith Hernandez. The problem is that Olerud compiled most of them in Toronto and Seattle. Carlos Delgado from 2006 to 2009. He had 473 homers and 1,500 RBIs, most by any Puerto Rican player, one player. Now, he did most of his damage with the Blue Jays, but he had a lot left in the tank when he came to the Mets. They got him, he was 33 years of age before the 2006 season. He had cleaned up for a lineup that was stacked. He always had guys in front of him. You had prime time versions of David Wright, Jose Reyes, Carlos Beltran. How are you not going to knock in runs with those guys in front of you? They all had 350 plus on base percentages. Each of them had 30 doubles, those guys ahead of you. He finished with 38 homers, 114 RBIs, and then had 62 more homers the next 2 seasons. He started slowing down in 2009, played 26 games. He retired right after that. But with his run, and a short one, he was by far the most lethal Mets first baseman, not named Mo Vaughn. You have other first basemen, obviously, ranked by WAR. Hernandez is the top in Mets history. Alonzo Olerud, Dave Magadan, a contact hitter that we thought would turn in to Keith Hernandez. You have Lucas Duda, Ike Davis from 2010 to 17. They both had their moments. Davis had some really good moments going over the dugout railing to make plays. And his second half home run binge, Duda, in 2015, it was overshadowed by his bad play in Game 5, the bad throw home. But he had 15 homers the second half of the season. Clendenon is considered to be a masterstroke, one of the best trades ever by the Mets. And it sparked them to an improbable run and title, first in franchise history. He had 12 homers in 72 games with the Mets that summer, 3 more in the World Series, won the MVP in the World Series. He didn't stick around all that long. He played under 300 games as a Met. Now, you look at these players, then you look at guys like Rico Brogna. Looked like he was going to be a star, and good glove with the Mets. Earlier post for list and info on first base greats. What does that mean? Yeah, Olerud's there. Olerud is terrific. Ed Kranepool, yes. Carlos Delgado, he was terrific. He gave them a lot of respectability at that cleanup position. Yeah, Piazza wasn't a first baseman. But now you look at guys like Rico Brogna. And Rico Brogna, we'll go to his stats. Let's see. He had a couple of good seasons with the Mets. He played for Detroit, the Mets. The Mets got him from Detroit, actually. People don't realize that. They think he was a homegrown Met. He wasn't. Played for Philly, the Red Sox, Atlanta. He retired like 20 years ago. Let's see. Rico Brogna. His best year was with the Phillies, really. 20 and 104, 24 and 102 with 265 and 278. With the Mets in 94, he hit 351 in a quarter of a season. 7 homers, 20 RBIs, an OPS plus of 1,006. No wonder everyone thought he'd be a major star. And he swung, and Keith Hernandez loved his swing. 95, 22 and 76 at 289. His OPS plus 158 and 94. That was the big year. 119, 100. Then was an under average hitter the rest of the way. But his OPS 748, 726. He was good until 99. I just want to see his defense. Let's look at his fielding. His range factor. He was very good. He didn't have a lot of range. In 97, he was a minus 17 total zone coverage, which is terrible. But by then he was, it's only 27, but he'd been banged up a bit. But his fielding percentage with the Mets, 997, 998. Excellent. Made a couple of errors a year. He made 7 errors in 97. His fielding went downhill. When he left the Mets, his fielding was not quite the same. But a lifetime 995 fielder, but without any range. Willie Montanez was one of the worst. I think Willie Montanez was like negative 17 defensively at first base many years. He cost him 17 runs pretty much. Willie Montanez, Richie Hebner was a little better, but not much. Yeah, Kimbrel will be fine with the Rays. They'll go to the World Series, and he'll be jumping up and down with champagne and goggles. But Dave Kingman, another guy. Now, Dave Kingman, defensively, I don't know if he was as bad as Montanez. I'm guessing the stats back then were skewed. They weren't quite what they are now. They take other things into consideration. But if I go to his defense, Kingman had big years. Kingman's OPS, he had a big year in 78. And then, of course, he had that year in Chicago where he had 48 homers. And he had a 146 OPS plus. He's 46% better than every hitter. With the Yankees, he played 8 games. He went to Oakland. He banged around. Defensively, not very good. His fielding was, no, in fact, terrible. His range total was better than, he got to more balls than Bronya. But, guy was sitting with a 930 fielding percentage. He was making 14 errors one year, 18 errors, 13 errors. That's pretty scary. That's a lot of errors to compare. We look at Keith Hernandez. Got to remember, Keith would make more errors because he'd get to 200 more balls a year than you did. Keith Hernandez, standard fielding. Keith Hernandez would have, well, when he was young, he was good. He made a lot of crazy plays. He'd make 10, 12 errors a year. But to give you an example, 1982, 83, 84, 82 and 83, he didn't make an error. Now, he didn't play a lot of games. He played about 8 games. He took place He had 146 assists in 1979. That is an amazing amount for a first baseman. And they led the league in double plays with 145. And a lot of them were probably started by Hernandez on a bunt. His total zone factor, instead of being negative 20 and negative 10, plus 13, plus 12, plus 13, plus 16, plus 14. And until the day he retired, he was still above average defensively. He wasn't what he was. You got to remember, he retired at 36 years of age. But just his zone differential was amazing. I remember him playing left field and right field a couple of games with the Cardinals in the 80s, early 80s. He took over for Joe Torre. But just an incredible defensive ball player with a lifetime 994 fielding percentage, which is incredible. You're not going to talk about Piazza, who went to first, all of that. Hey, John. Yeah, Con Kingman was the only legitimate bat they had back then. Hey, Fu. Over a 2-year period, he was, Fu, not over a career. Yeah, Olerud, if he would have played another 6 or 7 years at the Mets, probably would have been considered. But Keith Hernandez's defense. I'm going to show you a play that you've probably seen. It's the most incredible play I've ever seen by a first baseman. I'm going to give you some defensive highlights with Keith. I mean, the guy was unbelievable. Okay. We'll sit for 5 minutes and we'll see why Keith Hernandez is the best first baseman ever for the New York Mets.
The first infielder to ever win a Gold Glove and Silver Bat in the same season. To the rest of the Cardinal defenders. Last year, hitting was the Cardinals' strong suit. Often 5 players ranked in the league's top 10 of batting. None is in the top 10 this year, but the team is on top. Winning 11 of 14, picking up all those loose pieces and putting together the kind of winning combination not seen in old St. Lou for several years.
Ground ball, right side. What a play, Hernandez. Oh, baby. Let me put this one to you. What if you had Schmidt and Hernandez in the same infield? Oh, no balls that ever get through the corners.
I'll tell you, Keith Hernandez has Gold Gloves of his own, and now you see why. That is not a routine play, folks. Then, to get up and make a good throw from your knees is not easy either.
Turned it into a double play. And with the runner going, a ground ball to Hernandez. Back to first. Does he get him? Yes, he does.
Boy, that is some sort of play by Hernandez.
Nobody turns the 3-6-3 like Keith. No one else probably could have turned that one.
He has to make a hurry-up throw to the shortstop because the runner was going with a pitch.
Had a great arm,
back
too.
To get first base. He doesn't know where it is. He has to make the tag on the runner, and he does. What a play by Keith Hernandez. Boy, you just can't make it any better than that. So the Mets return the favor after Ozzie Smith turned a tough double play. They do it to him. And it's a line drive caught by Hernandez. What a play as he snow cones it. Keith Hernandez, the man with a golden glove. That saved the run.
Hernandez' defense has been unbelievable of late, and this play typifies it right there.
Francona hits the first pitch on the ground. Diving stop by Hernandez. Throws from a kneeling position to Sis, covering at first for the out. And Hernandez takes a hit away from Terry Francona.
There's a play on a bunt you
by
wouldn't
the
believe.
Golden Glove first baseman Keith
The bunt
Hernandez.
play that he went to third base on. They'll show it.
Ground ball, right side. Hernandez will have to go to first. Good play, Keith Hernandez. Talk about a ball staying down.
This ball really takes a bad hop, and how Hernandez was able to get down to it as he fell back at his heels is amazing. Right here, let's look at it again. Now watch the ball stay down. Hernandez holding on to it, making the right play, the sure out at first. The runner going down to second doesn't mean a thing.
You think the
Hernandez
World Series would have gone to Boston if he was looking for Boston? Watch this play.
And now the bunt, it should be caught, and Hernandez with a great play makes the play.
That's not even the good one.
Well, if this guy isn't an all-star third baseman in every category of the game, including leadership, I haven't seen one. He just continues to make the great plays.
Good athlete, too.
Jams him, and it's outside of first. Hernandez stops and throws to Terrell. What a play. It's almost becoming routine for Keith Hernandez to turn in a great play.
He could have hurt himself on this play. He makes a dive for it, wants to stop the ball, and that's what he does. If it gets by him, it's a two-base hit. So he makes a dive, stops the ball, now recovers beautifully after the acrobatic somersault. Boy, he has outstanding balance. Here it is on the other camera.
Outstanding balance while he's falling.
Beautiful picture of an outstanding play. Public
Look at this play.
Transportation.
Looks like the Entos, right?
6-3 double play, and it is turned perfectly by Keith Hernandez, and the side retired.
Makes 3-6-3 double plays just like a 6-4-3 double play. Watch the backhand play. Now he pivots. Hubie with the strong throw. They get Kennedy by 5 feet, and very few first basemen make that play, if any. There's a shot. Great play, Hernandez. Berenni covering first. Nice play by Berenni. Ball was thrown behind him. And Keith Hernandez with another outstanding play. Well, this is beginning to be routine for Hernandez. Full extension. And as you said, Fran, he throws the ball behind Berenni. A good play by Berenni to get Mike Stenhouse. Here it is from this angle. What a play by Hernandez.
Ground ball to the shortstop side, cut off by Brooks. And now the runner going to third. Here's Hernandez.
Look at that arm.
And he is out. Not a good play.
Bad play.
Bad play with 2 men out. And Hernandez coming off with that strong arm.
That changeup makes you vulnerable to the inside fastball.
Cruz with a ground ball. It's a fair ball, and Hernandez has got it. Woo! The throw is in time. What a play.
What a play.
All right. That's good.
Unbelievable. Incredible, right? Hey, Dave, how are you? I think he will be put in. You have to watch this play, though, on the bunt. I have never seen a play by a first baseman. I've been watching baseball many years. But this play, best play I ever saw on a bunt. First of all, I just don't know how he could do it. You tell me if this is incredible. Best play I ever saw on a bunt. Watch this.
Willis looking for the bunt. Carter in at third base, guarding the line. And Hernandez sneaking even closer. The ball is butted to Hernandez. An easy play at third. They get the fourth play. Carter's throw to first is in time. A double play. So Hernandez, another one of those great plays, taking that ball right
That's
on
incredible.
top of the hitter and then throwing to third base for the out of third, and then Carter gutting the ball over to first base to Tuffle for the double play.
I guess when you have Hernandez, it's like having 2 or 3 extra outfielders in there. Watch
Look at this play.
3.
Great throw.
5, 4. How many?
Yeah, Will, I've never seen anything. Yeah, Dave? I hope you're doing well, man. Thanks for coming in. Absolutely. My list for great JT Snow was a great first baseman for the Angels. Mark Race was good. Back in the old days, Wes Parker was very good. My vote is over. Yeah, I think so. Well, I think I think the vote. Will Clark was outstanding. Didn't have the range that a lot of guys had, but Don Mattingly, Mattingly was great. He didn't get to anything, but he was great defensively. But Mattingly really didn't cover much ground. But, if you threw it, great on scoops. But Keith Hernandez just did everything. Keith Hernandez played first base like an infielder, not a first baseman. See, to me, you have a first baseman, then you have infielders. He played it like a second baseman or a third baseman or a shortstop because he had that physical gift that most first basemen don't have. Look at the athletes that play first base, and most of them aren't athletic. Oh, yeah, Dave. Oh, I wish you came New York way, man. I would take you out to the greatest dinner. So, look, I think Keith wins it. Now, for pure hitting, Carlos Delgado probably. Even over Olerud, Delgado was a guy that hit 40 and 140. He was still really good when he came to the Mets, but not in his prime. He had 80% left. Problem is, when you get there at 80%, then you go down to 60% in a year, then 40% in a year. Just look at Carlos Baerga or Roberto Alomar. But yes, Will. But he was just an amazing infielder who happened to play first base. And you could see why he was named the captain. And I wonder why they made Gary Carter the captain as well. That might have been a little bit of the ruffling of feathers with Keith. I know when Carter first came there, they weren't all that close. Keith grew to love Gary Carter, but I think he thought all that Smiley was just bullshit. I think he looked at him like we look at Lindor. I think Lindor is bullshit. I think Gary Carter was legit, and I think Keith saw that. That's true, Joe. I never thought about that. That's a great statement. The longest run of success the Mets ever had, Keith Hernandez, was on the team. And as soon as Keith faltered, so did the Mets. But Carter was a born leader. He was a born leader. But look, Gary the Kid, he used to kill the Mets. I remember he beat the Mets in extra innings and a home run like in 82 or 83. I was watching it. That's when he was in his prime. The Mets got Gary Carter. He wasn't quite in his prime. Carter was probably around 31 or 32 when the Mets got him. Keith was about 28 when the Mets got him, or 29. Gary was beat up by the time he got to the Mets. In fact, the 86 season Gary had wasn't as great a season of the Met. 85, he went 32 and 100. That was his better season as a Met. He only hit about 260, I think, in 86. That wasn't his best year. 85 was the best year we got out of Carter. And then Carter started going downhill. Still had a lot in the tank in 86, but that was pretty much it. After 86, Carter was finished. He left it all on the field for that World Series. But and Keith, too, once he got his knee injury, dislocated his kneecap, rounding second base, and he was never the same. Ray Knight, good ball player. Bayonet, they wanted to win. Believe me, Keith wasn't joking around at first base if you just got a hit to knock them out of the playoffs. That's the only problem I have with Lindor. Look, Lindor's a great ball player. I just think that he's too friendly with the opponent. Now, I'm not saying, game 18 of the season you can't be friendly. But, when a guy doubles and probably knocked you out of the playoffs, you don't joke around there. Joke around after the game. True, William. They had a lot of young pitchers. You had guys that were coming up. Gooden, they wanted Carter to be there for Gooden. You had young guys. Roger McDowell was 24. Doug Sisk. You had some young guys, some young pitchers. Bobby O was the veteran of that team. He was 28. Ronnie Darling was about 25. Bobby Ojeda was the veteran. He was 28. Now, I don't know, Bayonet. The Stork, George Theodore. All arms and all legs, no bat. But so this was pretty straight to the point. Keith Hernandez wins. For me, it's Hernandez, Olaru, Delgado. Alonso, I don't like the way he left. Jerry Grody was amazing. Gary Carter, defensively now, if you go over a long career, was better defensively than Johnny Bench. Go look at the stats. Grody was exceptional. It was a very good catcher. John Stearns was a good defensive catcher as well. Piazza was brutal. If Piazza was a great catcher defensively, his WC whatever plus would be 210, 230, like Judge. That's why Judge is so high, that figure, because he's a great right fielder. Duffy Dyer, remember him? He used to play on Sundays in the early 70s. Remember, a left-hand hitter. Yeah, and that shows you, William, that a great catcher means a lot. Why do you think that they signed Real Muto, the Phillies, at this age? They know they overpaid for him, because this is a team that's based on pitching. When you have a team that is based on pitching, you need a good catcher. If you're an offensive juggernaut, remember the Milwaukee Brewers when they had Darryl Porter, Ted Simmons? They didn't need it. They scored 7 runs a game. When you are a team that runs off offense, you don't need a great defensive catcher. You need a guy that can catch the ball. You can't have a guy that's a butcher, but you don't need a gold glove catcher. Very rarely will you see a championship team without a top-notch defensive center fielder, shortstop, or catcher. Usually 2 of 3. But definitely 1. When you're not strong up the middle, you're not strong anywhere. Tug McGraw. McGraw was good because he would give you the 3-inning save. He'd throw 50 pitches. McGraw was great. So tonight, probably around 9:45, 10 o'clock, I will be on. Hopefully I'm not screaming. But we'll see. You have to be strong in the middle. Look, even a boxer, right? You have to have a strong core. Center means a lot. You center yourself in karate, right? That's the way it is. World Cup venue. I'd love to see a World Cup. I know that the tickets must be prohibitive, Dave. But anyway, I will see you on the post game tonight. Thank you for coming in, Dave. And thank you. Dave is in Ireland. Oh, he's across. Hey, Gerald. Mets win. The Mets win. Gerald, come into my post game tonight. I might be big in killing a small animal here. No, I won't be doing that. But, I'll be going nuts if the Mets lose. If the Mets win, you'll see the happy dance. Everybody, see you later, probably about 9:45. Have a great, great rest of your day. Later, Dave. God bless you.